We saw the reports from our friends at NATO saying that top theater chains in the country are planning to invest, I think, over $2 or $3 billion to their theaters. Part of that renovation is calling into question the need of 20 to 25 screen multiplexes. And I think part of that spend is going to go in turning a 25 screen multiplex into a 12 screen or 8 screen multiplex with a restaurant or a bowling alley or something else in it. I think if there is a bold prediction to make that I feel confident in for 2025 is that the new phase of exhibition is going to be newer theaters with fewer screens. This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. Here this week with my colleagues and co-hosts Rebecca Pahle and Chad Kennerk from Box Office Pro, and the editorial director of Box Office Studios, a division of our company that provides editorial services to movie theaters, is Russ Fischer. Welcome back, Russ.
Thanks. Nice to be here. Last time we tried this, I didn't have real internet in my house yet.
Russ moved, so we had to wait for Russ to step it up with the internet here. And your connection works this time.
Well, I've hardwired my house now. I spent a week crawling through the attics and the basement to run Ethernet cables. So, yeah.
And Rebecca, Chad, welcome back. We've been talking a lot more often about everything that came in, week out. Good end to the year?
Yeah, it was great. It's good to be back. Happy 2025. And looking forward to the slate this year.
Yeah, definitely a lot of movies to be excited about. I'm pumped to talk about them with you guys.
But guys, let's get started here with Q1 of 2025, previewing what we expect to be, unfortunately, the weakest quarter of the year, as we expect a slow start in January with Disney's Mufasa and Paramount's Sonic 3, the two Christmas titles from those major studios. We expect those holding strong through the month. There's not much there. On the calendar here, in terms of the key movies, the first date that we have to talk about this year is Valentine's Day, because that's when Marvel's Captain America: Brave New World opens. Russ, you are our resident Marvel/comic books expert. Can you give us a little bit of insight on what exactly is happening here with this Captain America IP? Last time I saw one of these movies, a different guy was Captain America.
It was a different dude. It was Chris Evans, obviously, who originated the role of Captain America for the MCU. He bowed out at the end of Avengers Endgame. Chris Evans, the actor, showed up in the MCU again in Deadpool and Wolverine, playing his Fantastic Four character, Johnny Storm. Also is reportedly going to be in Avengers Doomsday, but we don't know who he's going to be playing. Probably like some alt version of Steve Rogers, given that I think... who knows? We don't know. Doesn't matter. There's no point to speculate.
So wait, all these guys like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans,
he got the Oscar and he's coming back.
So they all bow out of these Marvel movies. They make all of this effort to give us a new Marvel movies thing. They spend 1 year where that doesn't work, so they just pay them to all come back, just playing different dudes.
You know, the Russo brothers, who directed 4 big Marvel movies, including the last 2 Avengers films, are back to do both Avengers Doomsday and its follow-up Avengers Secret Wars. And they had talked for a long time, or maybe not a long time, but they had said very specifically that the thing that could probably lure them back to Marvel would be getting to do Secret Wars. And when Marvel's plans all were upended by Jonathan Majors, they had to rework everything that they had planned, and that led to this, basically. And I would love to be able to hear some recording of some of the phone calls that Kevin Feige made to the Russos and ultimately to Robert Downey Jr. was like, what do we have to give you guys to come back? Because I
would imagine it's just like numbers being said in increasing quantities.
How many zeros?
Bigger numbers.
Yep.
Yes.
But I mean, it's no secret Marvel's been struggling. And so we come to Captain America, Brave New
World.
Yeah. I mean, we're at this point, we're midway through Phase 5 that started with the third Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, it definitely feels like, just for me, who's someone's kind of tangentially into it, after this year of really nothing MCU-wise except for Deadpool and Wolverine, which obviously made enough money, but it's kind of like an asterisk to the standard timeline there. I don't really remember where we left it.
And, the thing is, I don't know how much it matters.
Okay.
Like, this movie really looks like it's trying to go back to the vibe of Captain America Civil War. They're going into the whole, leaning into the idea of a Marvel political thriller, which is really evident from the most recent trailer for the new Captain America movie, which features Anthony Mackie, who is
Winter
taking
Soldier
over.
also had a little bit of that, right? I think
Like
this
the
Captain
70s
America,
political thriller.
solo strand tends to be a little bit more interesting, genre-wise.
You're right. I meant Winter Soldier, not Civil War, although that had a little bit. But no, I should have said Winter Soldier is correct. And this has, Harrison Ford taking over the role that William Hurt played, General Thunderbolt Ross, who he's now president. He's also a Hulk. He's the Red Hulk.
And this is all revealed in the trailer. Don't get
It's all
mad
in the
at
trailer.
us.
Yeah, there's no
They
detail
just
here.
they gave it up. Harrison Ford turns into the Hulk, but red, which is apparently a thing.
It is.
Is it an exciting thing? Is it a thing that people will buy tickets to see a new Captain America movie for?
I mean, I think, Chris Evans as Steve Rogers is one of the cornerstones of Marvel's entire business, for quite a while. And I think losing him is a thing that losing a number of those characters is a thing that Marvel hasn't really recovered from. Obviously, COVID hurt, a variety of other things, Disney Plus hurt, but Marvel hasn't gotten back on its feet exactly since those changes. And so I think they are wise to understand that positioning Anthony Mackie as the new Captain America is a thing that is going to be kind of an uphill struggle. I don't know the numbers for the show that they did with him. It's a decent show.
That's Captain America and the Winter Soldier is what it was called. I mean, I feel like that was even, when did they air that? It wasn't even
2 years ago.
Yeah, it was fairly old, and that was really the only substantial bit of screen time that Anthony Mackie's had in the MCU in a hot minute.
And I think that, the question that you asked a minute ago, they're like, where are we now? What is happening? I don't think it matters. I think it's like a dude, Captain America fights the Hulk. There you go. That's it. That's what's happening. And you're talking about phases. I don't even know how much the phases matter anymore.
Yeah, they were such a big deal originally, and now it's like, the next movie in the phases, or next in the year as well, is Thunderbolts. It definitely reads like a bit of a standalone reset sort of vibe until we get to the whole Secret world arcs and everything like that.
I think the only thing that matters with respect to the whole phases thing is that as we go towards the next Avengers movies, I would bet virtually all the money I have that is going to feature Marvel collapsing the whole multiverse thing, because that's what happens in Secret Wars and comics. And I think that is almost certainly what they're building to, which is at least a tacit admission that this has all become too much.
Unwieldy. I mean, and it's not all their fault to the extent of you have a pandemic in the middle of there. Like, this was never supposed to drag on quite this long. And when it is something, multiversy, it's going to be kind of difficult to keep the threads of it cohesive and coherent to just casual fans, even if you don't have any scheduled blips along the way to stretch it out so much.
Right. Exactly. And it just makes it feel like most of it doesn't matter. And I think they're realizing that and pushing forward to move beyond that.
I think we have to start talking about these Marvel movies on a case-by-case basis, on a film-by-film basis. I think the era where they're all a guarantee is gone. Yeah. That finished last year when we saw that there's movies that even if the predecessor makes $1 billion worldwide, this one might not even hit 200 or 150 domestic, right? So we really have to step back, see what the commercial prospects are on each of them, and take it from there. In this specific case, Captain America Brave New World, I do expect this to be one of the highest earning movies of the year, definitely among the top 10 when all is said and done. It's great to have a movie like that in February, because it's been now a number of post-pandemic years where the first quarter is slow. We do expect a slow first quarter. It's going to be the slowest of the year, but with a massive tentpole in mid-February, the way that we had in the pre-pandemic era.
I'm just looking forward to that horror movie that's coming out on Valentine's Day, the rom-com Love Hurts. I like the Q1 is always a nice time for some horror movies to sneak in there and exceed expectations. I don't know if we're going to have like a repeat of the level of success that, say, like Megan had, or
right.
The First Omen. Maybe not so much like box office success on that one, but I definitely feel like it was a success in terms of being an excellent film.
There's some counter-programmers in there. On Valentine's Day, Paddington in Peru also opens, a film that's performed extraordinarily well in the UK already.
I feel like in the UK, Paddington's critic-proof. I'm sure it's a lovely film. I've seen the reviews are kind of, it doesn't reach the heights of the first two, the Paul King ones, but
how could it?
I'm curious to see that one. I'm always liking what they do with the villains in that series so far.
Now, the second key date here in Q1 is going to be March 28th with another Disney title, the latest of its live-action films, Snow White, coming out in that late March date to close out the first quarter. A strong movie, but obviously the big impact beyond opening weekend is going to be felt in the second quarter of the year. Guys, these movies have been scandal proof or culture wars proof in the past. We've seen a mini culture war erupt with the Little Mermaid live action remake, a soft opening weekend. A lot of people freaked out. Guess what? Made a ton of money. It didn't matter. Snow White has a little bit of the same vibe here. Star Rachel Zegler, very outspoken on social media with some views. That might go into the entire culture war online thing that I just like to skip and gloss over.
Yeah. And on that controversy level, I mean, Peter Dinklage also really spoke out just about the fact that they were even remaking Snow White into a live action film, and, his kind of disagreement with that choice. So yeah, we'll see. I know the most recent trailer, they were kind of remodified, right? The dwarves.
Yeah. Some Sonic the Hedgehog-like revisionism, Russ. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think those were the words I used. Responding to fan criticism. And wasn't there a piece in Variety or the Hollywood Reporter recently about how more and more studios are kind of turning to fan focus groups,
putting together focus groups, and
to be like, hey, is this okay? Do you like it? Is it good?
Movies by committee. I'm sure that's coming.
Are you going to say mean things online about our dwarves?
Only putting the fan communities who are terminally online and get upset about this sort of thing.
Well, at the end of the day, the people that buy tickets to these things usually have 2 or 3 children and need something to do in late March. So I don't expect any of this to at all hit the box office prospects of another live-action Disney title. Those are the 2 key titles here in Q1, but we also have a couple of potential breakouts. An animated title. I'm not sure anyone here has much to say about the Dogman children's book adaptation coming out from Universal on January 31st.
Well, as a parent, I have this to say. The books, more like graphic novels upon which that movie is based, are insanely popular, like massively popular. It's the same guy who did Captain Underpants, which is also massively popular. That movie underperformed. So are we going to see the same kind of underperformance from Dogman? I don't know what I'll say. I've seen the Dogman trailer. It looks like it's kind of got like almost a Spider-Man, Spider-Verse kind of vibe to it, and its frenetic, manic kind of approach to the material. So it looks like they're vying more for the like multiple quadrant audience that clearly something like Captain Underpants, which also just has a huge uphill struggle at that name. It's like 2 tickets for Captain Underpants, please, And so, but Dogman, maybe we'll see. So that's one that I would say don't be surprised if it does better than expected.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, another family title here to potentially break out. Rebecca, you mentioned Paddington in Peru, counter-programmed with Captain America on February 14th. But I do expect late January Dogman, that has power to hit 100 million plus. The other title that could pleasantly surprise us here from director Ryan Coogler and consistent star of his films, Michael B. Jordan, on March 7th is Sinners. For many months, this movie was listed on my release calendar as untitled Ryan Coogler / Michael B. Jordan movie. And for months, that seemed interesting to me. So now that I've seen a trailer that has some horror vibes to it, some thriller vibes to it, I'm excited. I think the marketing push for this one is going to heat up right around Captain America coming out.
I mean, with Sinners, I guess the question is, I think we all, the four of us, I think we probably know what that movie actually is, because there's been a fair amount of, industry information out there about this concept for a while, but Warner Brothers is very obviously trying to take a creative and pretty guarded approach to revealing what Sinners is about. And so I can play along with that. It's fine. I'm super interested. It's Coogler, it's Jordan. Like you say, there's a horror vibe.
Yeah, I don't know too much. I just know that it's about, these two twin brothers that are coming back to their hometown after trying to kind of leave their troubles behind, and then they find something much worse in their hometown.
They realize the true meaning of Christmas.
From what I understand, the trailer for Sinners shows you way less of the movie than you think it does. Like that's a lot of kind of first act kind of stuff. And again, that may no longer be accurate, or that might just be wrong in general. But yeah, I'm interested.
It reminds me of the Nope trailer, where the first one was very enigmatic, and then later trailers, they were like, oh, this is what the movie's about.
And even then, they were pretty cautious about what Nope actually was until the movie was open.
You can't look at the.
Yeah. I didn't know it was going to be a Spielberg movie until like halfway through the movie. There's like, oh, this is a really good 1980s throwback to what Spielberg used to be great at. Yeah. And it worked for Nope. I hope it works with Sinners. I think there is a potential here of a word of mouth hit where you know a little bit about a movie, but you're curious and people are talking about it. But fortunately here, Q2 is going to make all the difference in 2025. This is going to be the strongest quarter of the year by far. The summer looks great from May to July. And April has a lot of potentially interesting titles that can break out. Let's start with the key movies here, because there's 2 dates to focus on in Q2. We're going to talk about Memorial Day in a little bit. We're also going to be talking about June 13th, which is that middle of June release date where Inside Out 2 performed so well. Let's talk about first, though, Thunderbolts with an asterisk. That is the actual name of the title now. We have to mention the asterisk. Opening on May 2nd. This is essentially Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad, where anti-heroes are coming in and having a difficult mission, and maybe some of them say jokes. Is there enough here, you think, to get one over the cold streak of B-tier superheroes that Marvel has had?
I mean, it'll be tough because, like you say, it's a lot of sort of the anti-hero characters who have been in films over the last 2 years, like Wyatt Russell's character, Florence Pugh's characters that were introduced kind of in most cases after the heyday that led up to the crazy performance of Avengers Endgame. So yeah, this is one that I'm definitely curious about, and I'm curious to see how well Brave New World does, and then we can kind of look back and reassess. But as long as they don't follow Suicide Squad's example too strongly by releasing a The Thunderbolts asterisk, then I'm going to say Marvel comes ahead on this one.
Russ, do you think this has real potential in the marketplace?
I think Thunderbolts is going to be a test of Florence Pugh's appeal to audiences, which is very strong. And she's fun in that role. I actually really liked what was the Hawkeye series. Hawkeye is among the very few streaming Marvel series that I've genuinely enjoyed. She's good in it. I think also this one is going to be more dependent on Captain America. There's the suggestion that the new Captain America movie that he's kind of tasked with reforming the Avengers. And I think that Thunderbolts asterisk title really suggests that it's like, okay, what's the, clearly suggesting a placeholder kind of thing. So it's like, is there going to be stuff that happens in Captain America that they play off in their marketing to really push this towards Avengers territory? Question mark.
But we do expect this year is a much stronger Memorial Day weekend than we had last year. Now, if you go back and listen to this episode in last year, you'll hear me proclaim the box office bonanza we would get from titles like the Garfield movie and Furiosa. I was dead wrong on that. I think it was wishful thinking on my part. But it looks like this year we have a little bit more of a guarantee from Disney, Lilo and Stitch, the live action version. Am I right about that? Or is that some sequel I don't know about?
No, it's another live action redo.
Okay, from a beloved, let's say more recent Disney title. And counter-programming that from Paramount is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Paramount going for the same counter-programming strategy on Memorial Day weekend that helped Gladiator 2 got a good foothold in the holiday corridor by programming it against Wicked Part 1. This 1-2 punch at the movies, I think, is going to be strong. Let's not impose another Barbenheimer Glickett thing. It's just two movies, guys. That's all it is. It used to happen all the time. We don't have to make it a thing every time this happens.
It was something last year when we weren't seeing two major movies come out on the same day so much. But now, thank God, it's just back to the status quo.
Russ, you're a big fan of that Mission Impossible franchise. The word final is in the subtitle. The word final wasn't in the subtitle of this movie before reshoots, I'm assuming. What exactly is going on? Because whatever reckoning happened 2 years ago probably didn't bring in enough money, and now we're talking about the end? It seemed like a greatest hits recollection when I saw the trailer.
It does, yeah. I mean, Dead Reckoning was unfortunately a prophetic title for the box office. But, calling that movie Part 1 was... even Wicked kind of didn't really do the whole part.
They really hit it. I mean, I feel like they did it the right way. They kind of slid it in under the radar a little bit.
I mean, I knew plenty of people who didn't know Wicked was a 2-movie thing like a week before the movie was opening. And these are people who were invested in it. And I think they just saw, oh, Wicked movie, cool, let's go. Obviously, it didn't really hurt it. But I think that Part 1 title absolutely helped murder the last Mission movie at the box office. It was very clear just months after that they were going to veer away from that titling. If you see the movie on digital now, it's just called Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. They dropped Part 1. Obviously, they kept the Reckoning thing here, but instead of pitching this as another Mission Impossible movie, they're pitching it as like, is this the last Mission Impossible movie? And come on, Tom Cruise is getting old.
That depends on how much movie it makes. I don't think they've decided yet.
We had this conversation about Mission Impossible 4.
4 was supposed to be the
5,
yeah.
Right? We've had this exact same conversation.
Totally.
The last one didn't do great. Mission Impossible 3 didn't do great. Mission Impossible 4, he's going to hand it over to Renner. Tom Cruise is getting older. He wants to do other things. Well, guess what? We had another renaissance in that series after the 4th one came out. Never say never with these movies.
Yeah, talk to Jeremy Renner about how passing that franchise on.
Hey, look, Haley Atwell's a stronger person to pass to than Jeremy Renner turned out to be. The thing I thought was interesting was the comments from Rebecca Ferguson, where people were like, hey, are you really done? Is your character actually dead? Are you really done with these movies? And she's like, yeah, man, they just take so long to make. And she's been very, very clearly said, in the time that they've been making this Mission movie, I've made like 6 other things in a TV show, and it's just like, I think that's a reality that's hard for not just her, but everybody involved. And maybe it's great if you're Ving Rhames. You've got a solid paycheck and you don't actually have to do that much. You just show up when McHugh tells you to be somewhere. But for a younger actor who is really trying to push forward, that's going to be hard to have your schedule very much on the hook of an ever-changing Mission Impossible production timeline. So I don't know. Clearly, are they just using this are they just pitching this as the final thing to get people in seats, or is it really, does it matter? I had to see it. I can't wait. But
of course, I felt that way about the last one. I just don't think the last one really delivered on my expectations. I'll tell you what I think is working against me on this one. Even though I love what Tom Cruise does with these movies, and I like a lot of these Mission Impossible movies, if you were to ask me what movie sequel I want to see Tom Cruise in again, I'd say Days of Thunder 2. And then I'd say Top Gun 3.
Edge of Tomorrow 2.
Exactly. There's a lot of other sequels now that I kind of want to see Tom Cruise in and explore. A guy that was notoriously anti-sequel for a long part of his career. That after that Top Gun 2 magic, I'm like, okay, you know what? I think the Ethan Hunt thing, I'm ready to move on from it. I want to see him in a race car. I want to see him in an airplane.
I want to see him do another like Collateral or a movie that requires him to act.
I want a little bit more of that range that we got to see over the years and that we've been missing because he spent so long working on these Mission movies.
I mean, it's hard. He's a producer. He owns Mission functionally. And, after doing that for so long, clearly he is willing, obviously he and Doug Liman have whatever rapport that they've got where Cruise will step away and do, what's that weirdo movie he did with Doug Liman, the Made in America?
Yeah, or he's like a drug runner. That was good. That was fun.
And it's fun.
It's great to see him in those movies, yeah.
But it's like, is he willing to relinquish control? He's had, obviously, directors come to him all the time and are like, hey, will you even do this small thing? And he doesn't have time or, I'm with Rebecca. I'd like to see him act more. I'd like to see him do some stuff that challenges him as a performer because I think he can do the work, and I think he's got surprising stuff left in him, and it would be cool to see him do more of that. But I will also take another Mission movie.
We talk about that nostalgia factor. I mean, we have it listed as a potential breakout, but I think in terms of younger parents bringing their kids to see something that they have fond memories of growing up, the kids have fond memories of growing up. I think that Minecraft movie is, I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth and I turn out to be incorrect, but if there has been a huge video game property that people have a nostalgic connection to, I think it is Minecraft.
Yeah,
we saw it with Five Nights at Freddy's, with the Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy. Video game movies are hitting in a way they really haven't
100%
before, and it took a younger generation coming of age to.
And that's very much in the border of a key movie in Q2 and a potential breakout. And let's be honest here, with the track record of the last Mission Impossible movie, maybe Minecraft ends up being a bigger movie than Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I can see a world where that certainly happens.
Easily. I mean, the thing with Minecraft is that movie feels 10 years too late.
That's my concern as well.
They already made the Angry Birds movie, and
that's why I think it's still in the question mark phase for me. Yes, Mission Impossible is on its last legs. I get it. It might not make a ton of money, but it's still a key date on the calendar because it's coming out on that key Memorial Day weekend. Now, Minecraft, I think there's a lot of potential for it on April 4th, but like Russ, it just feels like it would have been a bigger movie in 2015.
How much do people play Minecraft anymore? Yeah, I'm not even really sure.
At the same time, the Jumanji movies did really well, and they struggled to break Minecraft as a script for a long time, and then clearly they finally were like, what if we did Jumanji, but it's Minecraft? And it's not the worst idea from a box office perspective. Creatively, I don't know, I don't need to worry about it. It doesn't matter. But
it's not our movie.
I genuinely don't know. I'm with you at holding it as a question mark, but I do think it has a lot of potential. It would have had a lot more potential 5 years ago.
Well, let's go to the last big key date here in Q2 of 2025. On that June 13th weekend, we spoke about this briefly a second ago. How to Train Your Dragon live action remake paired up against a direct competitor, Disney Pixar's Elio. One has to move. This doesn't make sense. I don't know why. It's a long year. It's a big year. You don't have to hit this specific release date. Disney's usually owned that weekend for a long time. This is the same weekend where Inside Out was huge. I don't see why you have to shoehorn another family title and one with pretty good box office earning potential. This How to Train Your Dragon movie, the original, the animated one, is beloved by a lot of people.
I think it's low-key one of my favorite kids franchise trilogies. They're just solid movies, and I'll always cherish seeing that third one. I think one of the last movies I saw at the Prospect Park Pavilion in Brooklyn before it closed down and became a Nighthawk. And there is a moment in there that is traumatic for children, and a 5-year-old child in the audience just burst out crying. Like, that movie really traumatized some children. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they handle the CG components of it. I mean, if done well, it could be, I mean, like a not to this level, but like Avatar level spectacle. I'm never gonna, say anybody's gonna go over James Cameron in terms of the visual spectacle, but people flying around on dragons, I hope the CGI is good.
I'm just going to say that, like, oh, now you want to pay some respect to a Gerard Butler movie.
Gerard Butler's Scottish Viking.
Gerard Butler, I think, is he the only voice cast member who is reprising his role but playing it live action in this movie? He is. Well, because he plays Hiccup's dad. He voices Hiccup's dad in the original 3 movies, and he's playing that role in the live action here. It's like, oh yeah, this rules. I love it. What a fun thing. Also, this is being made by, interestingly, since we're just talking about Lilo and Stitch, made by Dean DeBlois? Dean DeBlois. I don't know how to properly pronounce your name.
Let's get Romeo in to pronounce that French name. Yes.
But he wrote or directed the first 3 movies, and he's directing this live action one. He was also the writer on Lilo and Stitch, and on the original one, not on the remake, obviously. But
listen, I'm not knocking the movie. I think there's a lot of potential here. I'm knocking the release date. I do. This doesn't make sense to me.
I think and I agree with that. I think this movie is interesting. Like, Rebecca, you talk about how you low-key love these movies, and I think these movies have a huge fan base. I don't think, I know, like, there's a massive extended and long-running fan base for those original animated movies.
The TV series. I mean, there have been all these other, multimedia components to the franchise that I'm not particularly aware of. I'm just kind of tangentially, but I imagine if you have kids, you're much, much more aware of how that franchise has kept going over the years since the 3rd one came out.
I think it makes this a dicey proposition, because if it looks good, then, like, bam, you're in good shape. But if people see a trailer and they get a whiff of it feeling like
an Avatar The Last Airbender level, like, oh, this steps in my childhood sort of situation.
Kind of. Yeah. And so that makes the release date interesting. I agree. I think it makes more sense for it to move. Disney's already moved Elio once. And in fact, they reworked the movie a little bit. Like, they recast one of the major roles and changed that character, and they tweaked some other stuff. There's behind the scene changes.
To be fair to these movies, it feels like every single Pixar film goes through a moment of it's in a crisis mode. It doesn't work. Granted, some don't work. I'm thinking of movies like The Good Dinosaur that just didn't really work out.
Right.
But others like Inside Out 2, which you can tell went through a number of iterations, end up tying it together. I'm not too sure Elio is going to be one of the bigger Pixar movies. I know they've struggled with originals as of late. But again, this goes back to the release date thing. It's not doing itself any favors sharing that date. It's a long year, guys. We have other quarters and other months that these movies can be scheduled in.
I feel like Universal's doubling down on How to Train Your Dragon, though, because they're opening an entire land in Universal Studios. So I think that's
well they should
in on that.
That's well they should. That makes perfect sense. There's huge potential here. Just, dude, give yourself an open lane. And I'll say the same thing to Disney. You've struggled on that date with Pixar originals. You don't need to own it. Just step back if you need to.
Well, here's the question is, because Chad, it's a really good point. In when is that land supposed to open? And is the movie essentially a commercial for the land? In which case it's not going to move.
Yeah, so Universal's Epic Universe and the How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk opens on May 22nd, 2025. So leading right into that June 13th
Makes
release.
Makes perfect sense. I know. But, these are the considerations that you have to make when you realize that movies are here not solely to connect with moviegoers and to help exhibitors. They're also here to help other elements of your sprawling media empire that now has to carry all the weight for the albatross that are decaying cable networks. So listen, if this helps being a very nice commercial to your theme parks, it makes sense for the studio. Does it make sense for the audience? Does it make sense for the moviegoers, for the movie theaters? not so much. We still have some time for either of these movies to budge. Now let's talk about some of the other titles here that can break out in the second quarter. A couple of rescheduled movies that we spoke about in last year's edition of this very episode. We expected Karate Kid Legends to open this Christmas, so just a week ago. It didn't. It was pushed to coincide with, is it the season premiere or the season finale of the Cobra Kai season that is going on? I think that's one of the reasons why they punched it. Yeah. So they pushed it now to the end of May. This is a movie that is going to unite the Cobra Kai generations with what exactly? Is Hilary Swank in it?
No,
is she coming back?
No, she's not.
It's not that generation. Okay.
There was the remake with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan.
Those guys coming back.
Jaden Smith is not in the movie. Jackie Chan is. So they're kind of two Mr. Miyagi's, which are now Ralph Macchio, having his character having grown into it, and Jackie Chan.
My two Miyagi's, all right.
The movie begins and or is set in Beijing.
I love the original Karate Kid. I'm not sure I'm still in the bag for this movie. Cobra Kai does have an audience. The IP is still relevant. I do expect this to have a big breakout potential. Now, the bigger question mark is another title that we spoke about in last year's edition of this episode. From Lionsgate, the John Wick spinoff Ballerina, that was originally scheduled in June of 2024. A year and a couple of reshoots later, it's coming out on June 6, 2025. Hopefully the 15th time is a charm with this movie. It feels like it's been in production for a long time.
It's definitely been one of those, been hearing about it at multiple consecutive CinemaCons. It's the White Bird, A Wonder Story of
Lionsgate's had a couple genre. Of those. Yeah. But here's my take on why I think Ballerina has potential. Because if it didn't, Lionsgate would have dumped it last year when they had a Lionsgate movie of the week all summer with like a bag of peanuts worth of marketing budget and 12 screens. They would have thrown it away. The new team there just would have gotten rid of it. They kept it. They doubled down on it. That's why I'm interested in it. I have zero doubt that these guys would have just dumped it last summer if they didn't believe in it.
From August to November, there was a Lionsgate movie every week.
Every week,
including
like 2,500 screens.
A Wonder Story. They put it back in theaters. They did it once, and then they did it again.
They needed to keep the streak going, man. They couldn't let it go. Yeah. No, but this didn't happen to it. It could have, if it was that awful, is maybe it could be on paper. I'm sure they would have just washed their hands of it and just said, "Hey, it's the last regime at Lionsgate." They didn't do it. They went back to the drawing board, and now we've got an extensively reshot, it seems, version of this movie with a lot more John Wick, I assume, than was there before.
Yeah, probably.
Coming out on June 6th. And you know what? That's what I'm paying a ticket for. I'm paying a ticket to see a movie that reminds me of other movies that has the John Wick guy in it. I think it's a positive. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to save this movie.
I think it'll come down to, at least in part, how much money and manpower Lionsgate has to put towards marketing, because you are going to need, you can put a John Wick story in the subtitle and make it very clear that it's part of this series and part of the continuity, but I think if you are going to introduce a whole new main character, you got to get out there and really just kind of blanket market some of this stuff, and we'll see how much they do that.
I think it's exactly what was said here already, which is how much money does Lionsgate have to put behind it?
Are they saving everything for the Michael Jackson biopic? Like that's their big.
That got pushed back.
It's still 2025, right?
It is 2025, but they've got originally it was those movies were going to be pretty close to one another, and now
I think it's going to be like April. The Michael Jackson biopic was going to be either late Q1, early Q2,
and now it's October.
Yeah, it's award season. Yeah, it opens up October. We'll talk about that movie in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great point. It's down to marketing. I think one of the other reasons why this is pushed to in the middle of the year is to make sure that Lionsgate theatrical marketing machine can heat up and ramp up properly for something like this. They don't have that many franchises left. They spend a lot of time and effort and money in reviving the Songbird and Snake's Hunger Games thing. That's back up and running. That worked really well in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I think they see a potential to do something similar here with John Wick.
Also, I feel like this sort of movie, you just have to get people to know it exists. And how do they do that? Especially, when does is that ESPN, HBO Max, that whole like super sports streaming service thing
It's
still
tied up in the courts.
Okay, got it.
Through competitive things.
Right. Okay. And I asked that just because it's like sports is how you market a movie like Ballerina, right? Like that's where you put that trailer. You put it on TV.
NBA playoffs. This is going to be all over the NBA playoffs.
That's what it
the
is.
Ad buys. That's the corridor that you're going to use to promote something like this. And then just cash in first week of June. Let's keep on going here with these Q2 potential breakouts. We were talking about movies that millennials hold dear to them from the early 2000s. My version of that movie is Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later, now with a new sequel called 28 Years Later, and an awesome trailer.
That trailer is
so good.
Amazing.
Woo! Best trailer so far this year. Loved it.
Terrific.
It was great.
Terrific.
I don't know what's going on. They're in an island. Is Cillian Murphy, is he back? Is he a zombie? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I want to find out. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Chad, what's your reaction to this?
I can't wait. I mean, Jodie Comer's in the cast, and like it's pretty stacked.
28 Weeks Later was so cool, and it was nice how those days and weeks didn't, you have a whole different tone to it, whole different characters. It doesn't feel like they're necessarily going to be beholden to, there's so much to add to the genre, to the zombie universe. Yeah, I'm really pumped for this one as well. Definitely one of my most anticipated of the year.
And I mean, they have confidence in this because there's another one of these already in the can.
Good.
Sequel to 28 Years Later, directed by Nia DaCosta, who did the Candyman remake. It's called like 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple or something. And when they announced that, I was like, the Bone Temple? What the hell are you talking about? And then they showed the Bone Temple in this trailer, and I was like, oh, that's the Bone Temple.
I think we're all super excited for this movie. I'm excited to find out more. I don't want to find out too much. I think that there's a real potential for this one to be another word of mouth hit with a slow and steady burn of marketing materials. So 28 Later is coming out on June 20th from Sony. The following weekend, another horror title here. And going back to this traffic that we have in the month of June, something I don't love, we've got Megan 2.0 coming out from Universal, Blumhouse sequel to the surprise post-pandemic hit about is it a robot doll? Are we calling everything AI now?
It was a robot.
It's a robot, right? We used to just call them robots. Now we have to call them AI things. So it's a robot doll.
Mechanical people, please.
Mm-hmm.
And first one enjoyed enough success. These sequels tend to have declining returns sometimes, especially in the horror genre. So I am bracing for this one to underperform a little bit. But who knows? I mean, that's why we have it in the potential breakouts. There's enough here to put it on the map.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a Smile 2 sort of. Like it was such a very strong concept.
That's a great
the first one, and
that's
then
a great comp.
And they had this was originally penciled in for like early in 25, and then they pushed it back to summer, which is interesting. I don't know what it means. We haven't seen a shred. Maybe I wasn't at CinemaCon, so I don't know if they showed anything at CinemaCon.
No, not really. And again, with this 28 Years Later advertising campaign already kicking off and having some real viral momentum behind it, if I were to play the scheduling game, I look at Megan 2.0 opening up against another potential breakout from Apple, F1, coming out that same weekend. I'm not sure I'd keep Megan 2.0 there. But, the other big question mark is does that F1 movie do any business at all? Because
it's Apple.
It's Apple, and F1, even though it's enjoying Formula One racing, enjoys a newfound popularity here in this country now over the last couple of years, in large part due to a reality show from Netflix. I'm not sure it has enough of an audience base to turn this into a domestic hit. Globally, I am expecting something out of it, but don't be surprised if F1 doesn't live up to its potential and ends up performing like, say, a Napoleon performed. Another Apple release targeted towards older men that doesn't really break through the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, in F1 is Joseph Kosinski, who obviously had a monster hit with Top Gun Maverick, but, his career is not, Tron did well, Top Gun did well, Oblivion not so much. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like a filmmaker like Kaczynski, it's kind of like, who knows where this goes, especially with Apple. Like maybe 2 weeks before the movie is scheduled to open, Apple is just going to decide that it's only going to be able to watch on your Apple Watch. It could be.
Yeah. I know Warner Brothers is involved in the international rollout of this title, so I'm not really concerned it's going to die the awful death that many a theatrical intended Apple movies ended up dying. It's going to hit theaters. It's going to be theatrically exclusive. I just do question what its commercial appeal is domestically. Globally, there's a little bit there. Personally, I can't wait to see it. The footage looks stunning. They've been shooting this with the actual F1 races for a number of years now. I'm really, really excited to see it. I would say this might be in the short list of movies I'm most excited to see. But I don't think a lot of people in the United States feel this way.
Can they pitch it in the right way? Which from a more conventional studio, I would say, yeah, you absolutely do that. You just turn it into a premium large format performer. But can Apple do that? I have no faith in them after the last 16 months.
And all of that leads us into a 4th of July weekend where the Jurassic World franchise returns with Jurassic World Rebirth. Release date on July 2nd from Universal. I thought the last Jurassic World was the last Jurassic World. I guess it made enough money that no, there's more.
There will never be a last Jurassic World.
They're going to keep on going, right?
If they weren't going to milk this franchise for all that it's worth, they would have stopped after 2.
Do we know anything about this title, Chad? Who's in it? Do we have any of those legacy cast members coming back?
I don't know about legacy cast members, but we have Scarlett Johansson, who has always wanted to be in a Jurassic Park movie, and it's finally happening. Also, Jonathan Bailey, who plays Fiero in Wicked.
To be fair, anyone Scarlett Johansson's age, which is also our age, wanted to be in a Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, borderline wanted to be a paleontologist.
Everyone wants to be in a Jurassic Park movie.
That's why I'm going
to stand in front of a green screen and go, wow. Like that sounds like a great way to make a living.
That's why no matter how good and or not good this movie is, it says Jurassic World, I'm probably going to be there and watching it. So.
Yeah, it's critic proof here. I think a lot of people feel that way, Chad. I think that's fair. These movies make a great amount of money worldwide, consistently among the top 10 earners of every year they come out. I think it's going to be the same here. Domestically here, the first Jurassic World in 2015 did $653 million. The second one, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom in 2018, ended up grossing $417. And the latest title, Jurassic World Dominion, ended up performing to $376. So a big drop-off from the first Jurassic World, but nobody in 2025 is going to look at $376 million at the domestic box office and say no. Everyone's going to look at that number and say, you know what? Even if we get close to 300, we're happy. I have a feeling that's going to happen again this summer. And if you want to learn more about that Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchise, go back to our archives. We'll link it in the show notes here. Russ, myself, and Rebecca go over the entire history of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies at the box office. We taped that a couple of years ago. A fun listen. That's why we won't talk about the movie too much, because we said everything there is to say about those a couple of years back. I kind of feel the same way about the movie I'm about to bring up, even though we've never covered this on the podcast. There's another Superman movie with another Superman guy, again from Warner Brothers.
The poster just coming out as we're recording this in advance. It looks like a poster for a Superman movie.
Poster looks great. Love they released a first look at the character kind of like in costume, and he was like in an apartment pulling on his boobs.
Like, so the world was ending in the background. You're like, are you going to check on that? I'm curious, but not excited in the way that I've never really responded to this franchise, so I'm going to stay out of that.
Can we even call it a franchise if they just keep on trying and not really have it stick? I mean, have we really had a iconic, for lack of a better word, Superman since Christopher Reeves? I think
I feel like for younger generations, Henry Cavill, I think, not iconic, but there's a sense of maybe lost potential with him. Like,
I think that's a great way of putting it. I think there's a feeling of lost potential with Henry Cavill. I thought Man of Steel was a great movie. I thought there was a lot to build on, and then they just turned it into a cash grab, frankly, in the DC extended universe after that. I thought all of that goodwill and potential from Man of Steel was wasted with every single thing that came after it.
No one, I think, would have predicted the path that the DCU took post Man of Steel. So definitely curious on this one as to how it's going to go and how it's going to be able to attract a new fan base versus coming in with all that baggage.
And I mean, poster debut as we're recording this means we'll have a trailer in a couple of days, probably. So by the time you're listening to this, we may have a better, more concrete idea of like what this movie is supposed to look and feel like.
Oh, but by the time we hit CinemaCon, I have a feeling that Warner Brothers is going to turn on the marketing machine for this one.
Oh, yeah.
If I have a prediction for marketing campaigns, I think this is going to be the Barbie of 23, the Wicked of 24.
Yes.
Warner's is going to make this a destination in 25.
Yes.
And it's telling because even though June is going to be a month packed with titles, and we spoke about a lot of them just a minute ago, July has 3 of the closest guaranteed hits we have in any given month, with Jurassic World Rebirth on July 2nd from Universal, Superman on July 11th from Warner Brothers, and then to finish the month, the Fantastic Four First Steps, July 25th from Disney, another Marvel title, and lo and behold, I actually know the superheroes in this one, which can only help.
I mean, maybe they'll finally get this right because they've been trying to get Fantastic Four right for how many years now?
A long time.
Yeah, you talk about Superman not sticking with post Christopher Reeve incarnations. It's like Fantastic Four, nobody's been able to make it work.
I will give the unpopular opinion, and I know you're going to roll your eyes. I think there's a good movie hidden inside the Abomination that Josh Trank directed.
Probably.
I think Josh Trank's Fantastic Four has glimmers of a really interesting, grounded movie with body horror elements that was not the movie Fox paid for, not the movie that moviegoers wanted to see, but there was something there that just ultimately got lost in production hell. I'm not sure how you turn this property into something attractive, but if someone can do it, it's going to be the people heading up the MCU right now.
And also the thing about Fantastic Four, too, is it's like, it is seemingly set primarily kind of in an alternate universe thing, which is going to elicit some eye rolls, but it's set in the 60s. So that gives them a little like, hey, we get to have fun with like swinging 60s designs and stuff, a little bit of a retro kind of funkiness, which I think will probably help it because it'll visually set it aside from a lot of other Marvel stuff where people are like, I don't know if I care about this anymore. And then Fantastic Four, I kind of expect to come out with like bright, bold, fun looking designs.
Harkening back to the comic book origins.
Yes,
the visual precisely. Kind of spectacularness of it.
Exactly. So I'm hoping they nail that. It's a bunch of cool characters, and it'd be nice if they get it right. They're gonna they're doing Doctor Doom for an Avengers movie, which Doctor Doom historically the Fantastic Four villain. The Fantastic Four must be planned as a significant part of the MCU going forward. So, which makes you wonder, like, where does Spider-Man come in? Spider-Man and Fantastic Four historically also pretty closely connected in some ways. So we'll see what happens. I hope it's good.
As much as anyone can hope for here for this series. Now let's move over to the potential breakouts, because there is one weekend in July that we didn't mention, and it has a movie that can be among the biggest of the year, but I'm not too sure about the box office prospects about the musical based on the Smurfs movie. No, that's not how I should sell it. It's a Smurfs movie with musical elements into it. For me, I don't know what you guys think. It seems kind of like that Trolls movie, but with Smurfs singing the songs.
The Trolls movies, did really well theatrically. You have Rihanna doing,
exactly. No, there's some potential here.
This. Yeah, if she pounds the pavement, I think we've seen her business instincts are quite good. So.
No, and again, chronologically, guys, we've been going since Memorial Day weekend. There is a tentpole with breakout potential, at least one. Some weekends have two. Every single weekend, just going down this list. The Smurfs is one of them. You go into the weekend after Fantastic Four, First Steps. On August 1st, The Bad Guys 2 from Universal. That's an animated title, an animated sequel that could find some audience in that corridor. It's a nice little streak here into the summer, rounding out in that first weekend of August, where there's a movie a week that has some real box office potential from Memorial Day until the first weekend of August.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what sort of cultural cachet the Smurfs hold at this point.
Yeah, to what extent do kids care about Smurfs? But same with Trolls. So.
But yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go as well. So I think if you make it look fun, and if there's a hummable, memorable song, totally.
Put it on the radio and you're good.
Yeah,
and Paramount did something big announcing this project a couple of CinemaCons ago, if you guys remember. We didn't hear anything about this movie in last year's CinemaCon, but I have a feeling it's going to come back up in conversation once we're in Las Vegas in March and April. Yeah, unfortunately, again, breakout potential for both of them, or they can both be misses once we get to that late Q3 corridor. That brings us into Q4 of 2025, because it's going to look very similar to the Q4 that we had in 2024. Looking at that Thanksgiving corridor, Wicked is back in the same exact weekend where it saw so much success in 2024, and it's followed by another Disney animated sequel in Thanksgiving week. No Gladiator this time around, but that shouldn't matter. That Thanksgiving corridor is going to be, once again, the big money earner and one of the biggest weekends of the year in 2025. What do we have to say about this Wicked Zootopia 2 1-2 punch? Are we going to rekindle that magic that brought us the highest earning Thanksgiving weekend of all time in 24?
I think it's going to depend on I think Wicked's streaming numbers, their home video numbers. If they can manage to kind of keep the enthusiasm going and kind of keep trickling out the new marketing material, I think that definitely Wicked Part 2 has Zootopia. I mean, for me, it was always one of those where I'm surprised it took them so long to make a sequel. So I'm not sure to what extent. I mean, is it kind of like a Minecraft situation? Is it coming in a bit too late? But then again, the original one, the first one was original IP, and so it didn't really have expectations coming into it so much. I mean, I think with this year, it mainly differs from 2024 in terms of, I think a large part of Wicked's success is coming from its strength in the holdover period. Whereas you look at 2025, there is, I feel like you have Avatar Fire and Ash coming out within a few weeks after Wicked, after Zootopia 2. Like how much of the market, especially the premium market, is that going to kind of get dibs on?
I don't think Wicked is a PLF play, though. I think they'll take it if it's there. I think Wicked is one of those movies where people just want to see it on the big screen and enjoy it. Chad, I mean, you're our musicals guy here, our theater guy. You were very impressed, fulfilled by what the first Wicked delivered. How do you think the second one is going to hit? Do you think that anticipation is there for a part 2?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think from what I'm seeing on social media, what I'm hearing from people, the buy-in is there. Everyone's very excited for part 2 and to see how they're going to adapt the rest of this story, because there are some questions. How are they going to bring some of these other elements to the screen?
And let's not forget the audiences that discovered the musical for the first time with the first part of Wicked, myself included. I know my wife was a big fan of it. I came in because she wanted to go see it. I was pleasantly surprised by it, and I independently want to see Wicked Part 2. Yeah, I think, if anything, Wicked Part 1 just grew the core audience base of this property. I would love to say it's going to make more, but the holdover success is so good that I don't want to make those sort of promises. At least I think it's going to be a somewhat comparable performance to the first part, and exhibitors have to be ecstatic about that prospect.
Will they re-release Wicked theatrically?
I think they would be silly not to.
Yeah.
We do sing along. I mean,
yeah,
I think.
Well, they're doing sing-along, Wicked sing-along. The first one is Christmas Day this year.
I think there's
So there's already been a Wicked sing-along at this point.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a long theatrical first run of Wicked that's going to end at some point in February even, which is great to say and very rare to say for a movie that opens in November to have 3+ months of theatrical play. I think there's great performance potential here. The question isn't will it perform, is will it hold as well as the first one? The first one ends in such a high point with Defying Gravity. The first one ends with a showstopper, as we spoke about in the Wicked analysis episode on this podcast a couple of weeks back. Does Act 2 have that same energy? Does Act 2 have the same musical numbers that gets you going back to the screen? As far as I know, Popular and Defying Gravity, the only 2 songs I knew about the musical before watching it, you already cashed that ticket, dude. That already happened. It happened in 2024. So I think there's going to be an audience here. I'm not sure it's going to be as big as the first one. But like I said, as long as it's comparable, I don't think anyone's got anything to complain.
Chad, what is the big Act 2 spectacle?
Well, I think Act 2, its strength is that it's retelling The Wizard of Oz, but from a different perspective. It's kind of flipping that story on its head.
So it's like people who are kind of excited to like, oh, this is where they're going with this character and where they're going with that character.
But everyone wants to see For Good, which is the, big song between, I don't want to give away spoilers. Everyone wants
between characters.
Yes. Everyone wants to see
characters in a film will sing a song.
Yeah. That I think is the big song everyone's waiting to see. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a selling point there, and we do expect it to be among the top earners of 2025. And we'll say the same thing about Zootopia. We saw that Universal and Disney Animation 1-2 punch work so well in the box office in 2024. And instead of having Mufasa and Sonic 3 split the market share on December 20th, like we had in 2024, in 25, we have one movie taking up the entire market share, coming out that same weekend, December 19th, being in production longer than my child has been in existence, Avatar, Fire and Ash. Love the subtitle.
I saw Avatar in theaters. I saw it opening weekend in 3D, whatever, the whole thing. 10 years later, I don't know how much I could have told you about Avatar. Had such a good time with Avatar 2. Like, absolutely loved it. And, it sets up a couple of father-son family dynamics, all this stuff going on. And I can't wait for Fire and Ash now. And I'm as surprised as anybody else by the fact that I'm now an Avatar guy.
Chad, Rebecca, are you guys Avatar people?
Yes.
I enjoyed the third act of Avatar 2. I like when James Cameron does boat stuff. There's no one better. As for the rest of it, not so much my bag there. But
come on, the depressed whale, depressed space whale.
I don't know, like a 20-minute segment about learning to scuba.
It was beautiful. Learning to scuba was astonishing to look at.
I walked out early of this thing, apparently. Chad, you seem to be less enthusiastic than Russ, but significantly more enthusiastic than Rebecca.
Yeah, I think I am kind of in between. I think for me, I'm waiting for the story to take a different direction. Like if that colonel comes back again.
Oh, he is.
Yes.
you can't bring him for a third time.
Is Sigourney Weaver going to play like a toddler version of herself again this year? I mean, I don't know, but that's the conversation that we were having before Way of Water came out. The conversation that everyone was having: how many people really give a crap about the Avatar series anymore? And it made $684 million domestically and then $2.3 billion worldwide. So I think. Never bet against James Cameron, I think, is still an effect.
So here's one thing about this, though, is that James Cameron has worked for a long time with producer John Landau, who died in 2024. And, Cameron's instincts are clearly good, but you cannot discount Landau's
he needed to kind of be there to
as
make it happen and be the buffer.
A very, very active producer. I got to interview him a couple of years back, and I was really, really impressed by the love of the cinematic scope of movie going and the movie theater screen as a palette and how he brought that to those productions. I think you're very right about that, Russ. And we've seen major directors like George Miller that output decrease in quality sometimes when your producing partner, your longtime producing partner, isn't there to guide a project through. I think that's a real valid concern.
So, I mean, Fire and Ash, it's, that movie is by and large in the can. All the stuff that they filmed for it as the basis for mocap work, like that was done 2 years ago or something. Like they wrapped that stuff ages ago, but the movie is certainly not done. And yeah, so that's my biggest concern with Fire and Ash is just Landau being gone. And
my boyfriend owes me $5 if they push it. I know we made that bet.
I don't think they're going to push it.
That's a good question. Does it get pushed? There's nothing else on the calendar. I mean, this is your holiday slate. It's December 19th. I think it's one of those things where they've pushed it enough.
Well, because also, especially after The Way of Water, everybody's like, we're getting the hell out of the way of Avatar. Nobody wants to be in that corridor. Because
it's a leggy movie. It opened, the last Avatar sequel opened at the same number that Matt Reeves' The Batman opened to, and ended up grossing over $600 million domestically. So it's not an opening weekend movie at all. It's a premium movie that will lock up those PLF screens well into January, if not February. Now let's go with the potential breakouts of 2025 in Q4, starting with a wild card of the year. Guys, this was originally scheduled to come out in April, if I'm not mistaken. Ended up getting moved to October 3rd from Lionsgate, the Michael Jackson biopic, Michael. We saw some footage of this at CinemaCon, which I think was very well received. I think Lionsgate is going to go all out on this, but there's no guarantee that a musical biopic is going to work at the box office. If one were to work, you'd have to guess one based on Michael Jackson's life would, but there's some chapters in his life that, yikes. I mean, I don't know how they're going to tell those in this movie, or if they're going to tell them at all.
I mean, the Whitney Houston biopic didn't work. The Aretha Franklin biopic didn't work. I mean, I'm speaking in terms of financially, in terms of box office. I mean, I think it's still a third rail type situation. I mean, there was the musical that did fairly well, but I know that's kind of a different prospect.
I mean, I think everybody still has like the stars of Bohemian Rhapsody in their eyes.
Yeah.
And obviously been trying to make a Michael Jackson movie forever. And then, you get someone who's his cousin or something, his nephew.
His nephew, yeah.
Yeah. To play Michael, which seems like a casting coup that you couldn't pray for. And so maybe the stars have aligned for this thing. But yeah, for every one that is a Bohemian Rhapsody, there are 10 of these movies.
I mean, what was the Tupac Shakur biopic that came out a few years back where it was just uncanny how accurate it looked?
All Eyes on Me.
Yeah,
that's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
But I think there's a big difference between every artist that we've mentioned so far
and Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson stands on his own. Maybe the only comp here that I think works is Bohemian Rhapsody, a movie that you brought up, Russ, because this to me sounds, and I haven't seen the film, but if you're going to make a somewhat anesthetized dramatization of a popular artist's life, you're going to sidestep any problematic element of the biography and just stick to the hits, just stick to the concert music, stick to the dance routines, and give audiences these recreations of concerts on a big screen experience. And if they do that commercially, I think they've got something in their hands. It's easier said than done, right? And I'm not sure that makes for an interesting film. Now, we're talking about box office here. So for our exhibitor friends, do they care about making an extra 100 million or having a better movie? They'll take the extra 100 million. Thank you very much. I have a feeling Lionsgate and the production team behind this movie are going to go for the commercial decision for this title.
I think it helps that you have Graham King, who produced Bohemian Rhapsody, also producing Michael. So hopefully it'll follow suit.
Yep. It's a print the legend kind of thing, right? You're not trying to, this is not like the Pulitzer Prize winning biography. This is
not Oppenheimer.
No, it's not. Yeah. It's just like make people feel like they know a little bit more about Michael, but exactly what you said, Daniel, like let them experience this thing that they cannot experience anymore. Like give them that live experience, make audiences feel like they were in the front row at, the performance where Michael Jackson debuted the moonwalk for the first time, like that
And
kind
that's
of
what Bohemian Rhapsody does.
Bohemian Rhapsody did so well in the Screen X element with the Live Aid concert scene.
The
That
Live
did
Aid
so
thing is
well. And that
great.
was pretty early on when there weren't nearly as many Screen X or panoramic
That was the
screens.
whole point of,
Like, I think now
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And I think it was a movie that was so misunderstood. People wanted Bohemian Rhapsody to be the type of movie that it had no interest in being. Bohemian Rhapsody didn't want to be a serious dramatization of Freddie Mercury's life and what he brought to fame.
They didn't want to do the rocket
movie.
The Rocket Man, warts and all, was not.
No, that wasn't on the docket for that movie. It wanted to give this live concert experience as close to it as you can give moviegoers. And that's what it delivered. And it delivered it perfectly well. I think it's a very misunderstood movie. I have a feeling the same or something similar will happen to this Michael Jackson biopic. I think Michael, for it to be the success we anticipated it becoming, has to give that live concert experience to moviegoers. And it's going to sacrifice the dramatic elements that maybe critics are looking for. And that's okay.
I mean, if we're looking for it to be a critic-proof movie, then like you say, if cinemas make a lot of money off of it, you can't win.
You can't win with that.
You can't
because you're never. And I mean, like Queen, you knew that Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't going to be this warts and all movie because the rest of the band is involved in it.
Yeah, they actively did not want to show all the.
Yeah, I have a feeling Michael Jackson's nephew isn't going to be there in a performance asking tough questions and giving uncomfortable answers. That's not what this movie is.
No. Accept
it, move on with it, and enjoy it if you decide to buy a ticket to see it.
Yeah. And if you don't want to see it, don't see it.
Simple enough. I do believe this is going to break out. I do believe it's a hit in waiting. But again, there's question marks here that we are going to list it in our potentials. Another potential breakout here on October 10th, the next edition of the new Tron series. Tron, do I pronounce this Ares or
Ares? Ares.
Tron Ares.
Tron Otters.
I haven't seen the last Tron, but I really like the soundtrack that Daft Punk produced for that movie. I listened to that soundtrack quite a bit. Is the last one good? Should I revisit it?
It's beautiful and boring as hell. That's my perspective. Soundtrack's
so say, if you watch it on home video, you're probably not gonna like it as much as if you caught it on the big screen.
I would love an isolated score. I'm a big give me an isolated score version of a movie anytime. And like Tron, what is it? Tron Legacy?
Legacy, yeah.
With just give me that with that isolated Daft Punk score. I would actually put that on often because it's pretty and it sounds good. But I don't care about any of the stuff that's happening in that movie. Nine Inch Nails doing the score for this one as Nine Inch Nails, not as Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which is interesting because all their score stuff typically is done under their own names.
And that wraps up our entire preview of the 2025 slate at the box office, going over the key movies and the potential breakouts in the marketplace. And to cap off this episode, any bold predictions for 2025? So we've been unusually good at coming out with hot-ish takes on what might happen in a given year in these episodes. I think for the bold predictions in 2025, they're not that bold because we've seen the writing on the wall now. For months, we've been hearing major CEOs of the top theater chains in the United States saying that the strategy moving forward is going to be closing 10 underperforming locations to open 2 new locations with fewer screens and more amenities, and maybe renovating 3 locations with less screens in those 3. What I'm trying to say is we will very likely see a reduction in the screen count in the United States in 2025 and moving forward. We saw the reports from our friends at NATO saying that top theater chains in the country are planning to invest, I think, over $2 or $3 billion to their theaters. Part of that renovation is calling into question the need of 20 to 25 screen multiplexes. And I think part of that spend is going to go in turning a 25 screen multiplex into a 12 screen or 8 screen multiplex with a restaurant or a bowling alley or something else in it. I think if there is a bold prediction to make that I feel confident in for 2025 is that the new face of exhibition is going to be newer theaters with fewer screens. And I don't think that's a bad thing for the industry.
Well, I mean, the multiplex is based on the idea of giving movies space to develop legs and to play out. And the modern business landscape explicitly denies that opportunity, you know? And so, yeah, the multiplex doesn't make sense now in the same way that it made 20 or 30 years ago, because ultimately those titles you're trying to keep on screens are going to streaming. The windows are closing. And so suddenly you're competing with people sitting on their couch, and it's not going to fly. So I hate to see a reduction in screen count, but I can't argue with the fact that it's different now, and maintaining those screens doesn't make as much sense. I'd rather see fewer screens that are frankly staffed better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I agree, Daniel, that it's not necessarily a bad thing on the face of it. You know, if there's going to be billions of dollars put into cinemas, you definitely assume that all the relevant players are really looking at the bottom line and crunching the numbers before that. That said, kind of to what Russ was saying, yeah, I definitely hope that, I feel like in the last just year particularly, we've seen films get a theatrical play just because there were so many screens, and prior to Q4, maybe not as much movies to play on them. I mean, one of my favorite movies of 2024 was The Substance, which I don't think is a movie that, had there not been empty screens, would have gotten near the release that it did. So I hope when we do kind of maybe consolidate and get rid of some of those underperforming screens, that we don't also go back to like a VPF era, you know, all of the same films just playing on the same screens, and not as many of those curveballs that we're getting these past 2 years.
I'd also like to see, you know, IMAX re-releases. I say this every year.
Yeah, and I don't, like, honestly, I completely agree with you, and I'm getting frustrated that it's taken so long. You have to think it's a rights issue, or it's getting those screens locked up by the first runs that are there.
Yeah.
But that is such easy money. Not only IMAX, premium format re-releases. Put Twisters in 4DX as a re-release in an empty weekend next year. It's going to do numbers.
Yeah.
Weekend.
What's that?
Where there aren't that many empty weekends, which is good.
Yeah, that's what Tuesdays are for. That's what Tuesdays and Wednesdays are for. You know, it doesn't have to be a week-long run. I think there's a real potential. You saw the IMAX re-release of Interstellar do great business in the tail end of 2024.
And
you
not
have
every
to
movie
think
is
there's more
Interstellar.
chances.
You know, not every movie is that. The Interstellar was the result of a long buildup of interest. And, you know, those tickets selling out immediately was great, you know, great news and word of mouth for that thing in general. But like, it also shows that, yes, those can play, and every title doesn't have to be Interstellar. There are other options out there, and I'd love to see more of them back on the screen.
Well, on behalf of everyone here from the Box Office Podcast, thank you so much for listening to today's preview episode, going over all of the titles that will make an impact on your screens in 2025. If you like what we do, don't forget to visit our website, boxofficepro.com. And if you're a vendor in this industry, don't forget to advertise. We are 100% advertiser driven, and you can contact our salesperson, Trisha.Martin at boxoffice.com, who will solve all of your advertising needs. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.